Hey,
Ooh,
I
we are live.
think we have some good stories for these people. Do you want to
Coming
pitch
from the
it?
dead yard, we are live.
Yes, I love to dance in the garden. Here we go.
Everyone thinks because you're a zombie, you don't know good coffee. Well, they're wrong. There's only one brew that gets my seal of approval. Deadly Grounds coffee is my guilty pleasure. The aroma is so intoxicating. It brings all of my neighbors out of the woodwork. Deadly Grounds coffee. Coffee to die for and zombie approved. It's good to get a little deadly. Use the front door! Oh, they're so disgusting.
The Dorkening and all affiliated shows are not intended for anyone under the age of 18. The following may contain discussions or scenes that have adult situations, graphic violence, nudity, strong sexual content, and graphic language. This show is intended for mature audiences only. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hello, 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 my lovelies, and welcome back to another episode of Corpse Garden Chronicles. We are going to go back to our original roots for the next little while because we are officially getting into spooky season, not season.
Yay.
And all the haunts are getting ready. All the auditions are done or nearly done. All the actors are getting in the swing. And what do we do here? We tell the spooky stories. Thanks to my original co host, Melanie D. This is my favorite place to go back to. And with me today, we have the Ron. Hi, Ron.
Good evening.
I am having trouble with my new setup. I'm trying to figure out how it works. So, either
Just
way,
new dubstep sound effects for the podcast.
in theory, oh, I have sound effects. There it is. Yes, I have my sound effects back the way they should be.
Yay.
I'm just trying to figure out how to get everything else to work. So, how is the Ron? Are you ready for the hunt?
I got a little haunt therapy. Ooh, no, I got an echo.
I don't hear an echo.
I do.
Okay,
Okay. Well, now it's gone.
that's good.
Maybe it won't come back. That was weird. Uh, I got a little haunt therapy this weekend. Went down to Hell's Dungeon for actor training, and Raz was there. We had a good time. Uh, did the actor training class. Did a lot of improv. Got to see where my new scene would be and to play around with my character a little bit. It was just what I needed after being at work all week and just the usual stresses of work week and finally getting a chance to kind of relax, cut loose a little bit at the haunt. So yeah, I'm looking forward to haunt season because it's going to be a welcome break from my job. And uh, we open September 13th, and I'm looking forward to it. It's so hard to go back to work when I spend all this fun time with haunt family down in Dayton. So yeah,
Oh yeah, I totally understand that. I would like to thank all the people of Newton, Texas for all the amazing things that y'all did this weekend to help everybody. I want to thank all the firefighters, the police officers, and the construction workers, and everybody who came out and let the kids climb on y'all's vehicles. Y'all explained to them how they work, show them what happens if you end up in a rolling car wreck without your seatbelt on. Everything y'all did was amazing. And thank you for letting my kid find out what it's like to climb in his own toys for real. That was an amazing Saturday. So, okay. Other than that, it's been an easy Sunday.
I was so close to taking a nap before this show, and I just don't know if I would have waken up in time to do it. So I'm here. I'm ready to read. Let's
Are
do
you ready?
this.
Great.
I'm ready. I'm ready. I'll get started. This is a
Yay.
fun story. All right.
Oh, red.
There's a lot to unpack with this story that I'm currently working on. Uh, Full disclosure, or however you want to put it, warning: this story is incomplete. I am still in the process of writing it. It's a work in progress. Therefore, it does not have a full working title as yet. It is evolving because I have had this idea for a while of a character that I've been wanting to write, uh, a private investigator with supernatural abilities that takes on the supernatural cases because nobody else can or will. Uh, I just wasn't sure how to go about doing it. If I wanted to basically write it as a full novel, if I wanted to do it as short story, or what would be the best venue for it. Uh, I had thought about including it in my next collection of short stories when I get around to publishing that book. But then the perfect opportunity presented itself when you, Jenny, uh, said that you needed some flash fiction to publish in the Fake Horror monthly newsletter. I said that I would try to write something. I went back through some of the flash fiction that I've written in the past, and I came across a story called B and E, Breaking and Entering, which was an idea that I had and started working on, but never fleshed it out into a full story. And I realized I could do that, and it would help to set up introducing this private and guest investigator character that I've been thinking about writing for a while. Now, I still don't know whether or not I'm going to turn this into a full novel, but my idea right now is it's going to be a series, a collection of standalone stories, which will be put together in one overarching book. So, like a vignette, a bunch of stories put together that move toward one specific storyline. So, Breaking and Entering is the flash fiction, which I believe you read because I submitted it for the paper, the newsletter, and I think that will be a nice little teaser to get people wanting to hear more. Now, the character itself, the private investigator, does not appear in Breaking and Entering. So consider it like a 0.5 before the actual story takes place. It's just used to set up the story where the private investigator will be introduced. So there's more that we can discuss after I finish reading. So what I'm going to do is treat this like chapters 1 and 2. Chapters 1 being the flash fiction, B and E, and then chapter 2 being the current story that I'm working on that is unfinished, which will introduce the private investigator character. I've been having a lot of fun writing this one, and I read it to my favorite audience, my parents, my mother, and she absolutely loves it. So I definitely know I'm on the right track with it, because if she likes my writing, then I know I got to keep going with it. So without further ado, Bean E. Detective Frank Lupo took a sip from his coffee. It was cold and bitter, much like Lupo himself, for having to be here so late. He set the cup down on the plain metal table. Now, Charlie, let's go through this again. We got you on the B&E, but if you don't want to go down for the murder of your partner, start telling it to me straight. I already told you cops everything, Charlie Miles said, exasperated. What more do you want from me? The bitch was dead. Landro shot her. In the head. She was dead, okay? I can't explain it. I ain't never seen anything like it. You're still sticking to the story that the dead Mrs. Whirlingate ripped your partner's head off his neck. Is that what you're telling me? Yes, cried Charlie. That's exactly what I'm telling you. Because that's what happened. It scared the shit out of me, man. Lupo sighed. All right, from the beginning, tell it to me again. Look, man, you're trying to get me to cop to something I didn't do. You got me on the B&E, sure, fine, whatever. I'll do the time, but I didn't do this, man. I can tell it to you a million times, and my story ain't gonna change. Humor me. This time Charlie sighed. Fine, man, whatever. Charlie rubbed his handcuffed hands over his face in an attempt to wipe the exhaustion from his eyes. It didn't work. He took a deep breath, then began his story. It was just supposed to be a routine job. We'd been casing the house for weeks, kept track of the family schedule. We knew when they would be gone. Landro had it down to a science. Sometimes he'd even go in during the day when the parents were at work and the kids at school, just to look around, see what was worth taking. And they were rich. Fancy jewelry, big screen TVs, wall safe. Landro cased it pretty good. He knew we could make some serious scratch fencing some of this stuff. So we planned it for a night. We knew they'd be out. There wasn't supposed to be anyone home. Hold up, said Lupo. The Whirlingates have in-home security. How'd you get past that? I told you, man. We'd been casing the place for weeks. Landro's pretty thorough when it comes to stuff. Somehow, he got a hold of the PIN code for their security keypad. We just walked in like we owned the place. Okay, go on, prompted Lupo. So we go in, not worried about noise because we think nobody's there. Landro has already scoped out a few items of interest he wants to take, so he goes off to do that. So I make myself busy looking around. I'm looking at this grandfather clock. It's huge, but it looks old. I'm thinking we could get a pretty penny for it if we could figure out how to move it. Damn thing must have weighed 200 pounds. It would have taken both of us a lot more time than we had to get that out to the van. So I'm thinking we'll pass on the clock this time around. And that's when I hear it. Hear what exactly? Interrupted Lupo. I hear this child's voice. Mommy? I look up and the little girl's at the top of the stairs. I look over at Landro. Landro looks at me. Landro pulls his gun. The kid screams. Suddenly the mom appears out of nowhere. She rushes toward Landro and he fires. And the back of her head just exploded. I swear, she wasn't supposed to be there. Silence filled the interrogation room as Charlie paused. Lupo said nothing, waiting for Charlie to continue. Then she just drops to the floor. The kid starts crying. I just stood there with my mouth hanging open like, did that just happen? Then Landro turns and aims at the kid. What are you doing? I says. No witnesses, says Landro. He starts to pull the trigger, but suddenly, there she is, the mom, holding her head and everything. And with a scream like a banshee, she reaches out and rips Landro's head right off his shoulders. Blood was spraying everywhere, and she was screaming, and the kid was crying, and that was it. I freaked out, and I bolted. Lupo sighed again. He leaned back in his own chair and rubbed his eyes. Charlie was right. His story had not changed. Every detail was exactly the same as the last two times he had told it. Sitting forward, he closed the case file folder placed in front of him. Lupo stood up from the table. All right, we can keep you on the B&E, but I'll have to wait to get the coroner's file back to corroborate your story. If what he says lines up with what you're telling me, then I'll dismiss those charges. But for now, you can sleep it off in lockup, and we can pick it up tomorrow. Man, I don't know if I'll ever be able to sleep again after what I witnessed tonight. Lupo grunted. I don't know what you saw, Charlie, but I believe that you are certain you saw something. Maybe she wasn't fully dead. Who knows? But people with holes in their heads don't normally get back up and scream at people. That's all I'm saying. He began to undo Charlie's handcuffs from the table to escort him out of the interrogation room. Look, you don't have to believe me. I can barely believe it myself, but I know what I saw. That's what I'm trying to figure out, Charlie. What did you see? Lupo made one last attempt to humor his prisoner. A mother protecting her kid, Charlie responded. It was the most terrifying thing I've ever seen. End chapter 1. So now we set up to meet our private detective. Chapter 2. The case of the Banshee House. Detective Frank Lupo stood at the door of the Whirlingate Mansion. It was covered with black and yellow police caution tape, which some patrol officer had placed there barely a day ago. It had not been disturbed. Remind me why we're here again at 1 o'clock in the morning? Asked his partner, Ezzie Jones. I need to see what Charlie claims he saw. Yes, but why at 1 o'clock in the morning? Couldn't we have come back and done this later when the sun is up? No, Ezzie, said Lupo with a slight hint of frustration in his voice. This is the time Charlie said that he came with his partner, Armand Landreau, to rob the place. And I need the details to be as exact as possible so we don't miss anything. Okay, replied Ezzie, her eyes darting around. But this place gives me the willies, that's all I'm saying. Duly noted, said Lupo. Just keep your eyes peeled and let me know if you see anything strange. He placed the key he had retrieved from the evidence locker into the bolt lock and the door slid open easily. Rather than ripping the tape off, he raised it up so he could duck under. See anything strange in a murder house, quipped Ezzie. Uh-huh, sure. Just follow me, said Lupo, ending the chatter. Ezzie did so, ducking under the tape also, but once she crossed the threshold, she shivered. Instinctively, she unholstered her sidearm. Lupo registered the action but said nothing. He was tempted to draw his own gun, but he resisted the urge, at least for now. They entered a cavernous room that was primarily decorated with marble flooring with an extravagant star-shaped design, leading to a massive staircase that flared at the bottom, counterposed by two large white columns that made their way all the way up to the domed ceiling. No doubt about it, the Whirlingates had money. Lupo had been in some posh places in his time on the force, but none of them ever as nice as this. Charlie said he was looking at a grandfather clock when it happened. Lupo looked around and saw a grandfather clock off to one side against the wall. It, like the rest of the area, was white and looked like it may have cost twice Lupo's monthly paycheck, if not more. Lupo let out a slight whistle as he gawked at the clock. It was still ticking, marking off the minutes past 1 a.m. Mommy? The sound made Lupo jump. He looked up. At the top of the staircase was a small girl with dark blonde hair wearing a pink onesie pajama. Frank, as he called, also noticing the girl. Lupo walked over to her. It's okay, he said, addressing the young girl. My name is Frank Lupo. Detective Frank Lupo. I'm with the police department. Is your daddy around? Someone we could speak to? He had almost said mommy, but then realized Mrs. Whirlingate was supposedly dead, her body at the morgue with the medical examiner. Mommy, the young girl said again. It's okay, said Lupo, putting his hands up. We're only here to talk. Is that okay? Just then, a loud, piercing shriek echoed through the cavernous room. Both Ezzie and Lupo winced as they placed their hands over their ears. It was then Lupo saw it. The young girl had somehow disappeared, but in its place, something else stood. A pale, emaciated figure with scraggly red hair and wearing a tattered white gown had appeared at the top of the steps. Its lower jaw was horribly distended, revealing a row of very long, very nasty teeth amidst a black tongue. The figure immediately launched itself from the top of the steps, flying toward the two officers as it reached out with razor-like claws. "Look out!" shouted Ezzy as she bodily tackled Lupo, pushing him out of the way. But Ezzy had put herself directly into the creature's path. Its claws connected with Ezzy's side as it passed over her, causing a coarse ripping sound as it made contact. Ezzy screamed in pain as she fell on top of Lupo, who scrambled quickly to regain his own feet, but Ezzy still lay wincing, clutching her side. The creature landed on all fours just behind them as it launched itself again, this time springing up the wall above the door where they had entered. Using its razor claws, it scrambled around the perimeter of the dome ceiling, positioning itself for another strike. "Are you hurt?" Lupo asked loudly, not taking his eyes off the creature. "I'm fine. It caught my vest. Still hurts like a bitch, though." As he took a quick glance down at her side where the claws had ripped through. Her shirt was torn, and underneath was her Kevlar vest, also showing signs of claw marks. Other than the outer fabric, the underneath layer was undamaged. "Good, move it," shouted Lupo as he made his way to the door that was still hanging open. He grabbed Ezzy's hand and yanked her up. They wasted no time scrambling back through the door just as the creature launched itself again, flying over them and landing on the opposite wall, this time missing them in the pass overhead. Exiting through the same door they had entered, Lupo slammed the door closed behind him. They didn't stop running until they made it down the path, out the gate, and back into the safety of Lupo's patrol car. Once inside the vehicle, they both caught their breath. "What the hell was that?" Lupo almost shouted. As he took a few more deep breaths, then responded, "Sir, I think that was a genuine, full-on banshee." "What the hell is a banshee?" asked Lupo, incredulous. "You know, from Irish folklore, it's like a fairy woman that's known for their shrieking. Usually their scream heralds the death of someone close to you or in the family, but popular media and creepypastas can have them doing all sorts of weird supernatural shit. Like, if you hear their scream, it can paralyze you, that kind of thing." "I don't believe in supernatural stuff," said Lupo, trying to regain his normal composure. "Just because you don't believe in it doesn't mean it isn't there." Lupo thought about this, as he had a point. He knew he couldn't explain what he had just witnessed, mainly for one primary fact that kept nibbling at the back of his mind, a fact he was reluctant to speak, then realized he had no choice. "Okay," he said. "I'm not sure I believe it, but for the sake of argument, let's say it was a banshee. Answer me one thing." "Okay. Did that banshee look like Mrs. Whirlingate to you?" Ezzy opened her mouth to speak, but stopped short as the realization hit her. She turned to look out the window at the menacing house, which suddenly seemed to take on a more ominous appearance. "Bloody hell," she said. "You're right. I've been a cop for a long time," said Lupo, "but this wasn't in our training. I'm not cut out for this supernatural stuff. I don't even know where to begin." As he thought for a minute, then she said, "Don't judge me, but I think I may know a guy." Lupo looked at her in surprise. He brought his hands up in exasperation. "You know a guy?" "I dabble," as he merely responded, trying to make it sound coy. "You know what?" he said, slapping his palms on the steering wheel. "I don't even want to know. Just make it happen." With that, he turned the ignition and pulled the car away from the house as fast as he could get it to go. Mason Giles sat at his desk with his feet propped up, perusing the back pages of the local newspaper rag, when his nose picked up hints of a mildly sweet, though inexpensive perfume. "You smell that?" The always present voice in his head queried. "We have company." Mason folded the paper and slapped it on the desk. He stood from his rickety wooden office chair and made his way to the office door. There was a silhouette on the other side of the opaque glass. Mason opened the door just in time to see Officer Ezzy Jones with her fist in mid-knock. "Can I help you?" Mason asked. "Are you Mason Giles, the private detective?" Ezzy asked the taller man. While he didn't look particularly muscular, he appeared athletically fit. He had short dark hair neatly combed back on his head, and his eyes were dark, darker than what she considered normal for a typical person. His skin was pale, but she couldn't place any kind of ethnicity. If it's about a job, then possibly. If it's about any unpaid parking tickets, then you got the wrong guy. Try 2 doors down. This caught Ezzy off guard. You're the only door in this office space. Damn, that never works. I really should think about moving. What can I do for you, miss? My name is Ezzie Jones. I'm with the Waynesville Police Department. My partner, Detective Frank Lupo, and I are investigating a homicide, and we've run into a bit of a conundrum that is outside of our area of expertise. And I'm told through channels you handle these types of cases. And what type of case might that be, Miss Jones? I don't know any other way to put this without sounding crazy, so I'm just going to put it out there. I believe we encountered a full on banshee last night. And what makes you think I handle these types of cases? Word through the grapevine? Ezzy did not offer up an explanation so much as hoping the private detective would not pursue that line of questioning. Must be one hell of a grapevine, Mason shot back. Okay, look, said Ezzy, not seeing any other way than the direct route. I dabble a little bit in witchcraft, typical Wiccan type stuff, sage and smudging, simple spells, that kind of thing. I never really took any of it seriously, just something for fun. I've personally never seen anything supernatural, at least not until last night. And word in the forums online and among my witches socials group is that you handle the more supernatural type of cases. Now, are you that Mason Giles or not? If not, I'm sorry for wasting your time. Mason said nothing at first, then finally responded. Step inside my office. Tell me more about what you witnessed. As he followed him into the inner office where Mason offered her a similar rickety wooden chair to his own, as he sat down. Water? Mason offered. No, thank you. I'm fine. Mason returned to his own chair, and in true private detective fashion, he opened a desk drawer, only to brandish a bottle of bourbon and 2 glasses. Not even expensive bourbon, but the $10 bottom shelf swill. Good for a cheap buzz, but burns like fire when swallowed. He motioned to Ezzy, who shook her head. I'm on the clock, she simply said. Mason shrugged and poured himself a shot. He sat back down on his own rickety wooden chair, this time propping his elbows on the desk instead of his feet. With no hesitation, he threw back the shot and cocked his head to the side, as he heard several vertebrae in his neck popped. Apparently relieved, Mason spoke. Start from the beginning, he said, as he pulled a vanilla folder out of a leather satchel she had been carrying. It would be easier to show you, she said. She slid the folder across the desk to Mason, who flipped it open to the first page. This is the case file, what we have so far. Mason sifted through the documents, examining the various reports and reading briefly, then came to the coroner photos. Mason stopped at one which showed the headless torso of a man. That's Armand Landreau, or what's left of him, as he said. He's technically the murderer we are investigating. The next photo shows Eliza Whirlingate, supposedly the one who murdered him. Mason shifted the photos to the next one. This one showed a pale, scraggly blonde-haired lady on the metal slab with a small hole in her forehead. Another angle of the victim showed the back of the head, which was largely missing, showing matted hair with black void where the back of the skull should have been. How does a lady with a large hole in the back of her head rip the head off a man much larger than her? That's what I'm hoping you can tell me, Ezzy responded. Continue, Mason prompted. My partner and I went to the Whirlingate mansion last night to investigate, and that's when we ran across Mrs. Whirlingate. But I swear to you, it wasn't Mrs. Whirlingate. Her body was disfigured, and she had this piercing shriek and claws, and she moved around the room like Spider-Man. Spider-Man? From the comics? I get the reference. So you're saying she was crawling up walls? Not just crawling, she was flying across the room trying to attack us. Mason thought for a moment, but this time the joking manner was gone from his voice when he spoke again. Banshees are very rare and definitely not common to this continent. They're Irish folklore. To see them outside of Ireland, or at the very least the British Isles, is generally unheard of. He stood up from his desk and went to a bookshelf on the wall behind him. Glancing at the books, he chose the one he was looking for, then opened it to flip through the pages. Finding the page he was looking for, he set the book down in front of Ezzy. Is this what you saw? Ezzy examined the picture. While it was just an etching, a black and white drawing, it did depict a frail, hag-like woman with scraggly hair and a distended jaw. Its eyes were exaggerated for effect, but Ezzy couldn't help noticing the resemblance of the drawing on the page to the late Mrs. Whirlingate. That's it exactly, Ezzy remarked. I'm telling you, that's exactly what we saw. Mason mused, sitting back down. Banshees are typically associated with mourning. If someone's grief consumes them so much it controls them, they can sometimes transform into the creature, but often there is some kind of magic involved. It doesn't just happen naturally. Something must be the catalyst, like the loss of a loved one, a death in the family. The case file mentioned a husband and a child. Did one of them recently die? Ezzy was taken aback. I don't know. The husband is out of the picture. We've had trouble locating him. His status is unknown. Both Lupo and I saw the child, the little girl. We assumed she was their daughter, but we haven't been able to find her either. I think she's gone hiding. That's why we could use your help with this case. If something strange is going on here, I'm not sure Lupo or I would know how to handle it. Mason closed the book between them. First thing we need to do, he said, is find the girl. I think she may be the key to all of this. So does that mean you will help us? I'll admit you have piqued my curiosity. I'll look into it, and if I find anything or think there's something to it, then I'll charge my standard consultant fee. I'll have my secretary file the paperwork with your department. As he looked around at the threadbare furnishings and lack of decor. You have a secretary? Mason smirked. No. As he shrugged. Anyways, I think I can swing that. She stood up from the chair and gathered up the photos and reports, stuffing them back into the folder. She placed the folder back into her satchel. Mason moved from behind the desk toward the door. He held it open for her. Be at the Whirlingate Mansion tonight at 1 a.m. My partner and I will see you there. I'll see you then, Mason watched as the officer made her way out of his office. Why didn't you tell her you think the child is already dead? Asked the ever-present voice in his head. Because we don't know that for certain, Mason responded in his own thoughts. He did not need to speak aloud to communicate with the voice. There is one thing I know for certain, though. That something strange is indeed happening, replied the voice. Yes. And you think the father is behind it all? Yes, I do. We need to make a call, said the voice. Yes, we do. Mason sat in his truck outside the Whirlingate Mansion exactly at 1 a.m., as he had agreed. Both the detective and Ezzy Jones had already arrived. The taller male detective, the one Ezzy had called Lupo, held his hand over his eyes against the blinding glare of the truck headlights. Mason switched them off and studied the pair. Lupo was a 50-something with broad shoulders and a portly belly to match. He had curly gray hair and massive hands that looked like they had seen a scuffle or two. He was dressed in a wrinkled gray suit and white shirt with a striped corn silk blue tie that hung loosely around his neck. The man looked like he hadn't slept for days, and he probably hadn't. Ezzy was much more clean-cut, wearing a dark blue press suit and white button-down shirt. Her blondish brown hair pulled back into a tight bun. She looked far more refreshed than her detective partner. She stood with her hand on her belt. Mason opened the door to his truck and stepped down. He was still wearing the same thing he had been wearing when Ezzy Jones had graced his office earlier. Faded denim blue jeans, a red t-shirt, a black casual suit jacket, and forest brown military-style tactical boots. It was the same outfit he always wore, except for the color of t-shirt and jacket. You must be the guy, Lupo started as Mason approached. The detective held out his hand for a handshake. That depends, replied Mason. How many other guys were you planning to meet at 1 a.m. in an abandoned mansion? All right, smart guy, quick Lupo. You're him, the supernatural private eye. I prefer alternative investigations, retorted Mason. But yes, Mason Giles. He took the detective's hand and shook it while stealthily palming one of his business cards into it. Lupo took the card and glanced at it, barely reading it. He stuffed it into his coat pocket. You know, private investigators are supposed to be licensed in this state, right? Mason reached into his own jacket pocket and pulled out a folded sheet of paper. I anticipated you'd ask for credentials, he said. He handed the paper to Lupo. Lupo unfolded it and gave it a bit more of a perusing than he had the business card. It says here, licensed private investigator and certified fugitive retrieval agent. That's impressive. He handed the paper back to Mason, who took it, refolded it, and placed it back in his pocket. Anything else you want to know is on file in City Hall, Mason said. Excuse me. Lupo made a shooing motion with his hand. I really don't care, he admitted truthfully. As long as you can help us with this problem, that's all that matters to me. Miss Jones states she thinks you have a banshee on your hands. I don't know what it is, frankly. I've been in the force for 30 years and I ain't never seen anything like it. It scared the bejesus out of me, and that's not easy to do. Well, detective, this is your show. Lead the way. Lupo did just that. The three moved toward the front door of the house where the crime scene tape was still hung. Lupo tried the door. It had remained unlocked since their previous visit. No one had dared to approach the house after Lupo had made his report. Again, it swung open easily, revealing the cavernous hall before them with the star-tiled floor. The three ducked under the crime scene tape and made their way in. Now, Charlie, our perp, said he was over here looking at this grandfather clock when he heard a child's voice say, Mommy. So that's the first thing I did. And sure enough, there was a small girl at the top of the stairs. And you think it's the Whirlingate daughter? Mason asked. Aubrey Whirlingate, yes. And according to the pictures we have of her, it sure as hell looks like her. Mason stood in the center of the star, looking to the top of the stairs. All right, detective, do what you did last night. Let's see if we can get her to manifest. Ezzy and Lupo moved toward the clock. Sure enough, the three heard the child's voice. Mommy? Mason had not taken his eyes off the stairs. What he saw might have surprised a normal person to witness it, but Mason was not a normal person. The girl had just appeared. No smoke, no effects, just blinked right there into existence. Stay there, Mason called. Lupo and Ezzy froze. Mason walked toward them, then closer to the clock. He inspected the clock's face. Okay, now move, he said. The two did so. Mason stepped off the line of the clock face. The girl at the top of the stairs disappeared. Mason said, now watch. Lupo and Ezzy did. Mason moved his hand in front of the clock face. Again, the girl reappeared. Mommy, the voice said. It's on a motion sensor, Mason stated. He moved his hand away from the face of the clock and the girl disappeared. Lupo laughed. Are you shitting me? But what about the banshee? As he interrupted. That was real. No sooner had she said it than the three heard the terrifying shriek. Once again, the creature appeared at the top of the steps. Look out, shouted Ezzy. Get behind me, shouted Mason as he moved quickly back to the center of the stair, or the center of the star. The creature leapt again from the top of the steps and glided through the air toward the trio, but Mason held his ground. As the creature approached, he reached out his left hand and caught the creature by its throat, abruptly halting its attack. What the hell? Mason heard Lupo explain. If it were possible for a creature such as this to emit a look of surprise, it did so, as it clawed at Mason's arm, trying to free itself from his grip. Its eyes grew wide, this outcome being clearly unexpected. But Mason held firm, his arm not even wavering. The creature gave up its struggle, and to everyone's surprise, except perhaps for Mason, the creature spoke. What are you? Its voice was raspy and pinched as Mason still held it by its throat. Mason did not respond vocally, but Lupo and Ezzy watched in shock and horror as the private investigator's eyes turned a glowing red and a wicked sneer crossed his face. The creature emitted a new emotion this time, fear. It struggled to free itself, was revitalized as it began clawing harder against Mason's arm, but somehow Mason was still unwavering. Is it a banshee? Ezzy asked, her voice quivering from behind Mason as she struggled to get a better look at the creature. It's not a true banshee, Mason replied, but a banshee demon. Nasty little suckers, very vicious. What the hell is a banshee demon? As he asked. I don't even know that was a thing. On the surface, the creature still resembled Mrs. Whirlingate, though perhaps more emaciated and distorted than when they had originally encountered the creature. I'll show you, Mason said. Then in a whispered, garbled language neither Lupo nor Ezzy could understand, he waved his hand in front of the creature. The creature struggled harder to no avail. Then Mason's hand plunged directly into the creature's chest. There was no blood, no viscera. It just sunk directly into the frail flesh. The creature thrashed around a bit, but Mason pulled back. In his right hand, he held a small green and gray demon. Its head was triangular with horns about 6 inches long, jutting out on each side of its head. Its arms and legs were wiry thin. Its eyes were bulbous and glossy black. Mason dropped the host body of Mrs. Whirlingate to the floor. He held on to the demon, who continued trying to claw at Mason's arm to free itself. What the hell is that? Lupo shouted. Tell me, demon, who summoned you? I'll tell you nothing, the demon screeched in his pinched voice. Very well, then, said Mason as his hand closed tighter around the demon's throat. The demon choked. I'll tell you, it finally relented. Who summoned you? Asked Mason again. It was the girl, the demon sputtered. Why? Asked Mason. I don't know, replied the demon. I'm only here to serve her command. Where is she? In the house. She's hiding. I cannot let you go, Mason said, but I will send you back to hell where you will be free of her control. The demon said nothing, merely nodding toward Mason. It closed its eyes. Mason began whispering in the garbled language again. He waved his free hand, and a burst of flame appeared in midair, growing larger until a small circle opened inside the flame. Ezzy could see directly into the circle, and what she saw froze her to the core. She gripped Lupo's arm harder, and Lupo made no motion to move away from the embrace. Back to hell with you, Mason shouted as he jerked his arm, releasing the demon. It flew directly into the hole, and the circle closed immediately and disappeared, as if it had never been there. Was that what I think it was? Ezzy asked. Let's hope you never have to go through it, Mason said in response. Ezzy shivered. We need to find the girl, Mason said. I believe she has the answers we are looking for. I don't even know what the question is anymore, said Lupo. Up the stairs, said Mason. The three ascended the stairs. Both Lupo and Ezzy had their guns drawn. Mason knew if they encountered anything, the guns would be of no help, but he decided not to comment on this fact. If it made them feel safer, then so be it. At the top of the staircase, positioned on the opposite wall, was a suit of armor on a pedestal. It stood about a head taller than Mason and just slightly wider across the shoulders. The suit was adorned with a large battle axe held at the ready. Mason admired the suit, then looked both ways, to the left and right. To the left was a row of rooms with a door at the end of the hallway. To the right stood a large double door. The doors down the left looked ordinary, nothing unusual about them. But the double doors to the right, they stood out. While Mason knew his companions couldn't see them, the double doors were encircled by glyphs, invisible to the naked eye, but shone like a beacon to Mason. Which way? Asked Ezzy. Mason pointed toward the double doors. This way. The three made their way to the end of the hallway and stood in front of the doors. Ezzy was about to reach forth and grab the knob to open them, but Mason put out his hand. Hold on, he said. Glancing at the glyphs around the door, he said, This door is protected by magic. Step back. The three did so. Mason pulled a coin from his pocket. He tossed it toward the door. Immediately, blue sparks shot out from the wall surrounding the door, zapping the quarter in midair. Whoa! Exclaimed Lupo. That could have been us. Uh-huh, confirmed Mason. What do we do? Asked Ezzy. I got this, said Mason. Stay here. Without waiting, he stepped toward the door, speaking that unintelligible language Ezzy and Lupo had heard earlier. This time, he had his left arm outstretched in front of him. Lupo and Ezzy watched as the blue sparks emanated from the walls again, but this time they were concentrated on Mason's outstretched arm. Ezzy and Lupo watched in stupefied amazement as Mason's arm seemed to be absorbing the sparks. He continued advancing on the door until he was within close enough range to touch it. But rather than turning the knob, Mason's unintelligible language grew louder. He brought his tack boot up and slammed it, a powerful kick against the doors, which burst open with an explosion of sparks. Immediately, the magic sparks disappeared. Mason stood, looking back at his companions, and with a sweeping motion of his arm, he said, After you. That's it. That's all I have so far. Hope you enjoyed it.
I did. That was awesome.
Oh, it's going to get better. I got so many ideas for this. I can't even begin. I wish I could just get it all out, write it all down, just work nonstop on it until I get it out. But it's going to take me some time, but I'm excited about this one. I want to keep going on it.
Oh, yeah. It
There's-
looks definitely amazing.
There's characters that I want to introduce that haven't been introduced yet. Mason has a whole backstory on why he is the way he is. A lot of things will become explained, and another character will be introduced who is the head of a coven, which teaches people how to be witches and wizards and all that. And that's going to be fun. I've got so many other ideas that I want to do with it. And then we'll get to learn more about the ever-present voice that's always in Mason's head that he talks to. This whole story behind that as well. I got a bunch of ideas, and so I'm thinking about writing them as a series of short stories, like I said, and put them together in one big book as a vignette. So there's so much to it.
I definitely look forward to finding out. Okay.
I could feasibly stop writing all of my other projects and just focus on this, and it would still take me a long time.
Yes. At some point, you need to like finish one of them, though.
I know that's the problem. I start writing, and then I sort of lose the momentum, and I stop writing, and then I get another idea, and I start writing that, and then I lose the momentum, and then I get another idea, and I start writing that. So now I've got these 3 projects up in the air. With it all started with the first one, the last entry of Grant Gilson, which I still need to get back to, and I want to do that as a standalone novel. And I think by the time I'm done with it, it will be long enough to be a standalone novel. And then, of course, the newest one is what was it? The Curse of the pirate story that I'm working on. I blanked on the name. Hang on a second.
I don't remember personally.
The Curse of Captain Eyre. Yeah.
Okay.
Captain Eyre. This one was definitely inspired by being active with the Buckeye Lake Pirates and going to the Pirate Fest and all of that. Captain Eyre finds a treasure that Captain Eyre himself is not cursed, but the treasure is. And finding the treasure has consequences. That's all I'm going to say.
Okay. Let's do ad break and then come back. Sound
Okay.
good?
Yes.
Greetings and shabibans. We are the Retro Reductopus Cephala Podcast, a long-form bi-weekly show that celebrates all the things that made growing up awesome.
Yeah, that sounds good, but I don't know what all those words mean.
I think what Parasite Steve's trying to say is that on Retro Redoctopus, we explore a range of retro goodness, from toys, video games, and movies, to cartoons, and even snacks and school lunches.
Oh.
And we do it all with a positive spin, a slew of killer guests, and some very adult language.
And you know what else is cool?
No.
This crazy show is part of the Your King Podcast Network with new episodes every Tentacle Tuesday.
What's that?
And if waiting 2 weeks for a new episode gives you a sad, know that we drop bonus episodes all the time, like the off-format Crow's Nest and an interview series we call The Brig.
You can listen to Retro Redoctopus on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or any app that's cool enough to carry the only show that celebrates all the things that make growing up awesome.
hello. We're back.
And we're back.
Okay. Hi, guys. For me, this over the next spooky season until the end of October, I'm going to be doing random episodes between having guests and episodes solo, and some stories will be revisited from other episodes, and other stories will be new, like Ron. Like, I'm definitely looking forward to more of his. But tonight, I am going to read Into the Jungle from the Nightmare Whiskers anthology and the Heaven's Forgotten Tales collection, because she took a whole bunch of her stories from Sabrina did, put them together in a collection of her own. But this one I really like. One of the creatures actually is nightmarish enough to give me nightmares because I despise spiders. And I'm going to do like normal and put up the cemetery while I'm reading. And I hope you guys enjoy the story. Into the Jungle. Fear is always good, though it is sometimes taken to the extreme. It tells us that danger is near. It is a tool that has been carried from ancient times, a gift from ancient gods to allow us to survive predators that have long been forgotten. Unfortunately, though, they were forgotten by us. Forgotten by us. We were not forgotten by them. Many of them are still here, lying in wait, waiting for the chance to attack. Some places are easier for those creatures to hide from the light of the modern world, deep oceans and deeper forests, places that humans have no business going. As capitalism has grown stronger, that is exactly where we have decided to go. Some people say that monsters are all human. Maybe some are, and the movie industry has made a few more famous. Ones that are pretty in some ways. It is the ones that are not spoken about, the ones that cause true terror that keep me up at night. I barely survived my own nightmare. The trip was supposed to be an easy money maker. We go into the jungle, clear space for the next wave of builders. Nothing to it. We started as 100 strong. I'm the only one who made it home. No, I'm not insane. Listen to me. There's things in the jungle, skittering and slimy things. Things that can easily eat a man whole alive. Okay, I am sounding a little like a crazy person. Let me start at the beginning. Maybe I can convince you then. Our group was told that people there was okay. Our group was told that though there was some danger in going on this job, but it was supposed to be a minor thing. Fire, ants, piranhas, snakes, and the occasional native. Oh, they covered the bases and made sure we were prepared for normal jungle stuff. We were a bunch of mercs with some experience in traveling through more dangerous areas. Most of us had forgotten fear. The company provided enough supplies to see us to the jungle, and then enough to camp there for 3 months. The plan was to send more people in after a month and cycle us out. The second group would include the builders and the guards for them. We were supposed to clear space and set up the base camp. The group left at dawn. All of us were in good spirits and some jovial slapstick, proving exactly how fearless we really were. The problem started around the third day. The insect population was thicker than expected, and our preventative measures did nothing. The first fatality was to an enormous mosquito. So I've heard people joke about ones large enough to carry small children or farm animals. This was larger than anything I'd seen before. It was at least 3 meters long. The fellow it bit fell into the river and we couldn't find him after that. Even though I was used to strange creatures that often faced us on such journeys, I had a thought about turning around right then. Maybe I should have. We also could not waste much time searching for him, though we did try. It was a tough schedule, though, dangerous territory. We could not afford to be complacent about the danger or the schedule, either one. The next one we lost was a friend. James fell asleep and fell from the boat into a piranha-filled section of the river. We could see the futility of trying to save him. His screams haunted my dreams for the next few days. Over the next week, we lost more in such fashion, where they were just absorbed by the jungle. We expected the losses, though we did not panic, really. We kept moving. I wonder if I should have turned around then, but the group would have probably just thrown me out the boat for trying. As we put up camp at dusk on the seventh day, we were down to 70 souls. We had lost over a quarter of our original number. Somehow, it never occurred to us to be afraid. We were in the rainforest after all. It was known for being deadly. Killing the emotional connection was imperative to survival in the jungle. The lost souls were apparently just not strong enough. There was almost a blasé feeling that ran through the whole damn lot of us. Overconfident can kill just as surely as any monster. We kept to the schedule. We knew our shit. The group was down to a mere 50 the time we got to the planned campsite. That was where the real work was supposed to begin. We had little over a week of leeway. Then we had to clear the site and prepare for the other group to come in. Do you think the rainforest has a soul? As long as we were not doing any major changes, the creatures of the forest left us mostly alone. Putting away one or two of them in minor attacks, it was almost humane. There was a goopy vine that covered the entire area where we were using as camp. It smelled awful and it was sticky. We decided that it was the first thing we had to clear out. If only we had known. Machetes were useless against the vines. They almost immediately killed themselves. Each attack released more of the smell, and we didn't want to use the flamethrowers for the possibility of doing damage to the supplies or the jungle overall. It didn't take long before we decided that the vines were not going to be removed in that fashion. The other problem by this point, far more pressing, the vines seemed to have a mind of their own. We were losing people because the vines were snatching them and pulling them into the canopy. The screams made the night heavy as we had no idea who was next. By the time the sun rays actually broke through the thick canopy of the foliage, we were down to less than 50 strong. That is when the creature descended from the treetop, standing 12 feet tall at the thorax. It resembled a black widow spider, only in the vaguest way. It dripped the same goop as the vines. With the speed of something demonic, it had 10 of us wrapped in cocoons before we even knew what had happened. The cocoons were clear green goo. I still hear the sound of the tin choking on the goo as they struggled. It was almost as though they were drowning. The screams that started were mind-breaking. I'm a coward. That spider crawled right out of my nightmares, and I was damned if I was going to let it eat me. Self-preservation kicked me into a fit of speed. I dove in the river and swam as though my life depended on it. I came out on the other side of the river and ran. Without supplies, I was barely able to survive the trip out. the vine burned when it hit, so I figured I would be dead of fever long before now. Actually, I really don't remember the trip back if I'm telling the truth. Dated 6 months after the initial team left. Washington Post. Amazon project investigation pending by Frank Manson. Dayton Corporate is facing investigations today as 3 teams that they sent to the Amazon rainforest have not returned. The teams are suspected to have 0 survivors. Investigations thus far are in early stages. However, it looks as though the construction firm may have sent the teams into clear an area for building a new resort. The initial team never reported back, and still further teams were sent in. It is currently unknown as to why the company sent further teams when they lost contact. The prosecutor is quoted as saying that they are seeking proper damages for the families of the teams that did not return. That was Patty's story. I love that story. It has, when I first read in Nightmare Whiskers, she was afraid that it wasn't really good. Well, Serena. And I read it, and I've read it 2 or 3 times. And then I asked Serena if I could read it on here, and she said she didn't have a problem. I seem to have lost my co host somewhere. Hey, Ron, where did you go? Anyways, I hope you guys have a wonderful spooky season. And I honestly do agree with a whole lot of the things that are said on social media. July has ended, officially time to begin everything that is awesome and spooky. Right, Ron?
Sure, whatever you say. I had to take a quick little bio break, so I wasn't on camera.
Yeah. Spooky season is good to start now that July is over.
The lie is over.
Yeah, July is over.
What lie?
July.
Oh, July. You said the lie. I was like, who's lying?
Nobody's lying.
Okay.
July.
July is over. July like
Yep.
a dog on a rug.
Dude, my problem is it's still 80 degrees outside and it's nighttime.
Oh, I think it's in the 60s here, so not too bad.
Oh, that's so much better. I'd rather have that.
Well, you're in the wrong state.
I know, but everybody, well, all the family's here, so I must be here apparently. So, anyway, did you have anything to add about your stories moving forward?
Uh, there's so much more to it, but it's like, what can I say about it without giving too much of it away, since I haven't written it yet? Like, I have ideas on where I want to go with it. Like, I know what the ending of this particular story, the case of the Banshee House, I know where it's going. I know what the ending of it will be, and it will set up an overarching plot, and
Okay.
then there will be some other short stories that will happen. They may or may not connect to the overarching plot, but they will reveal more information about our main character, our private investigator, Mason Giles.
Okay.
It's just like, I don't know how much to give away. The head of the coven, he is directly based upon my Quest character.
Okay.
So
As you guys are going to find out more about Michael and how he knows Sage. I am going to finish the story. The first, I put the first chapter a few months ago in the newsletter. I'm going to continue that story, and then the next story is going to be a interesting journey of Sage and Michael working with a few friends, trying to find a way to get rid of a weird entity that a resident had called into the nursing home before he died, trying to get more time. So that is going to be interesting. And I actually look forward to finding out how that journey goes because I have the basis of it, but I don't know how the in between works. So that should be fun. Ron, where do you want people to find you?
they can find me on my author page on Facebook, Ronald W. Gillespie Jr. dash author, and the goddess of social media, uh, putting everything up there. Miss Jenny over here, making all of the updates, and I usually only post when I have something to talk about the writing process itself and the stories that I'm working on. But other than that, Jenny is actually the one that's making all of the uh, all of the posts that you see there. I do have a website, which is still in construction because I haven't worked on any since I've been working on this story. We still have an issue with the email servers and trying to set up the WordPress ish type log on for it. So I don't know how long that's going to take. It may be a work in progress forever. Who knows? But I mean, the website's there. It's rongillespie.com if you want to go take a look at it. And eventually, once we get everything figured out, I will actually start using it to upload blogs to it. It's not really conducive right now. It would take a lot of manual work to upload blogs and to organize everything. So it's a project for the future, just like everything else. In the meantime, I'm just going to keep working on the stories.
That works. As for me, you can find me here at Owlite or Fakor, whichever YouTube you're watching from. I'll be at Facebook as well and all the other random places. My page, of course, Corpse Chronicles, and then right over the library in the blue box. Come find us there. I'll be sharing my stuff and everybody else's stuff. And I hope you guys read more scary stories.
Read my scary stories.
Read his scary stories. Read my scary stories. Read all the scary stories.
Yes.
We want you to do read all of them and enjoy them. Until then, we shall talk to you later. Good night.
Happy trails to you till